And choosing
Yeah.
love isn't easy, especially in times like these. And I struggle with it all the time, which is why I make it a daily practice. But if we can pause, take a breath, and choose kindness, we can create the change beyond any single outcome. So I say it again that I want my kids to grow up in a world where people lead with their hearts. Let's keep moving forward with love today, tomorrow, and every day. We're in this together. Keep loving forward.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, welcome back. Got quite a unique and awesome guest with me on this episode, Ruben Rojas. I met you at Summer Greatness a few years ago, man. I just know your brand is absolutely going places. Now you got like mural all over the world, multiple different locations. And you have such a unique story about living a life of through love. So what was your journey like? How did this whole thing unfolded for you?
No, what, we got the long version or the short version?
Maybe somewhere in between. Maybe somewhere in between, because I know like you went through a lot of different routes before getting through it, ultimately landing on the topic of love through your podcast.
Let's see. How do I start it so it's a little different? Short. I
Yeah.
painted my first mural in 2014, and that was after I came out of like emotional intelligence workshop, let's call it. And at the time, I was in finance, and I was depressed. I was not happy. I'm like, I cannot
Yeah.
live my life this way. And if we go before that, I was in
Yeah.
real estate for 10 years, and I made a lot of money really early on. We're talking 20, 30,
Hmm.
40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 month in, month out. And I thought success
Wow.
and value came from my diamond watches and things and friends, bikes and houses and very expensive weekends in Vegas. But when you lose it all, you quickly
Mm.
realize like, oh, that's not what success is. From there, I pivoted, I lost everything, went bankrupt, went into finance, a couple years into finance, run out the gate, successful. I'm in the same position of like, uh-oh, I'm being benched, but money ain't. At this time, after losing it all, I didn't value it the same way. I started valuing more like experience and what can I do with the money? What is the opportunity to live? And I also looked at the career I was in. I'm like, I cannot be in another career where I'm measured in value by the dollars I generate. Now, don't get me wrong. I
Mm.
like money. We need money. I like nice things. I mean, I create art for a
Yeah.
living. It is not cheap. It is not a
Yeah.
necessity, although I would say art is definitely a necessity for the human condition in life, but you can go look at it versus having to buy it and own it out. So, it is important to make
Yeah.
money. It's important to be successful. And I think wealth should just be peace of mind and not worrying about what the bank account looks like or bills or stresses and things like that. But that first mural in 2014 had the question, who will you be? And at the time, I wasn't asking
Yeah.
myself these questions. I'm like, why am I
Uh,
down in the dumps? Why am I depressed? Like, I'm single. I'm young. The cards were given to me, right? I'm healthy. I'm fit. I'm athletic. I'm good looking. I get all that. Why am I depressed? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I unhappy? Don't have kids, don't have baggage, don't have a wife, don't have anything. It's like, dude, it's the dream. But
that's the limit.
I had to
Yeah.
figure it out. But I didn't ask those questions. So that mural said, who will you be? So I asked Ruben, who
Yeah.
will you be? And instead of living through fear, which is how it was operating, I said,
Hmm.
what if I look at this, put the lens of love on? Instead of being unworthy, I am worthy. Instead of not
Mm.
belonging, I do belong. Instead of being, you know, unresponsible for my way of life and my thought, I'm going to take responsibility for my way of life and my thoughts and the conversations I'm having in my head. So everything has the other side of it. I could live through fear or I could live through love. And that was basically the birth of this whole thing. Now, did I call it Live Through Love
Hmm.
at the moment? No. Did I have all these great taglines and things that I have now done, years later? No, but it evolved into that. And then from 2014 to 2018, I had to figure out, am I gonna stay in finance and just reshift how I think, or no, I hated it. Couldn't see myself in this. I don't money I make, or figure out how to become a full-time artist. And in 2018, I gave up
Love
my
that,
entire
man.
book of business and I became a full-time artist.
Wow.
And here I am. Now, it's also not to say that I have been an artist my whole life. I was always drew, did all those things. So it wasn't like I just woke up and like, oh, I discovered I'm an artist. No, I was an athlete and an artist my whole life. So that was there. But I think everything is in your life for a reason, right? I had to lose all the money. I had to make all the money. I had to go bankrupt. I had to have these conversations because they molded me into who I am today. So I would never go back and
Yeah,
change that. But also all that business helped me turn this art thing into an art business.
exactly. Ability to scale it. I absolutely love that story. And I feel like just personally, I'm kind of like the 2015 version of you in a sense that I also too went to that emotional intelligence workshop where Chris Lee was an instructor, and it just really unlocked a lot of that childhood, like the things that I kind of left behind. A lot of inspiration, a lot of identity. Who am I? Kind of like to that mural you talked about. When you look at that mural back then, who are you? Who do you want to be? And society put this huge emphasis, oh, you got to make money, you got to be successful, you got to look a certain way, you got to get fit. All of that, to your point, is important. Makes you feel good about yourself, makes you feel like, hey, you're secure. But at some point, like, we'll have this calling, and I think you can resonate with this too, just inside of us. It's like, am I just living the expectation of the world, or do I live the life I truly want to live? And I'm on this journey right now with this podcast, with this vision I'm creating, kind of following your first step, how you're about the world of love, I am about living a life of wonder. And you went through like so many like up and downs. How were you able to take that risk? I think for a lot of people, that's probably the hardest part. They have this calling inside of them. Maybe they have that one word, like how your word is love, my word is wonder, but they have this amazing career. You had the massive real estate book of business, and that's very impressive, by the way, brother. That was like what, 10 over 10, at least over 10, 15 years ago, making that kind of money before this whole inflation. That's very, hats off to you. How are they able to take that risk when their whole life identity, what all their friends, that's all they know them for, is what their accomplishments are?
That's a tough question. I mean, in my case, I
Mm.
lost it all. I didn't have a choice. It wasn't like I jumped into this with a nice cushion of
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. I literally lost it all and had to rebuild. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I just asked what hurts more. And I started
Mm.
looking at my life ahead. If I stay in this,
Yeah.
one day I will be married, one day I'll have kids, and I'll still be an angry a-hole. And you can't wipe that off your face. I don't care how much money I bring home and can buy and take you, but if I'm unhappy and I'm miserable, that is going to permeate and translate all over everyone around me.
Yeah.
And I realized that
Yeah.
that is worse than the current
Yeah.
situation. So that's one thing. The other thing is I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always been the guy that jumps off a cliff. So
Mm.
I've never had that fear. More apprehension as we get older, it gets harder. And I'll tell you, it's never the right time until you make the right time. The older you get, the more
Wow.
responsibilities you get, the more you grow into wife, marriage, kid, business, whatever. It will get harder.
Hmm.
It will get harder.
Hmm.
Luckily, I didn't have any of that at the time. But ask yourself, what is worse? Doing this for the rest of my life,
Mm.
being unhappy, miserable, who knows where that goes,
Hmm.
or the opportunity of what this could look like. You don't want a what if. You don't
Hmm.
want a shoulda, coulda, what. On your deathbed, you
Hmm.
want to say, I took the chance. Maybe
Let's
I failed.
go.
Hey, I go back to
Yes.
this. That's not the goal.
Yes.
Like, set yourself up to win also. So that's
Yeah.
really what it is. You just got to ask yourself, what is worse, the
Yeah.
present or the opportunity of what can look like?
Yeah. No, I definitely so love that so much because kind of to your point, when I'm older, when I'm like 70, 80 years old, I want to live my life, not a life where somebody else designed or even like a 70% version of myself. I want to live that, what that 100% could be. Heck, maybe even 110% with a little bit of favor from God, a little bit of luck along the way. That would be awesome. I'm curious for you when you kind of build your brand, and then I think you have one of the strongest personal brand in the world. That your murals are pretty much all over the world. You guys see the word love. That's his handwriting. And it's, there's pretty good chance we just say it's going to be up at Olympics. Last time we talked
That's
about
the
that coming
goal.
out,
I'm
like
throwing it
hopefully
out there. LA
that's the goal.
2028. I sure hope so. I mean,
All right.
that'd be a
Well,
dream come
I'm
true.
your number one cheerleader for that to happen. But you guys are seeing his work everywhere. That word love is specifically how were you able to distill down your artwork? Because you're a very creative person, but have such a complex meaning behind such a simple word. How did that process go from a business perspective?
I never looked at it as a business. I just it just
Mm,
evolved and turned into this. I never looked at turning it into a brand. I never looked at any of that. That wasn't the goal. It was just, it made me
mm,
happy to go out and paint walls. I knew that I could have
mm,
conversations with strangers that I never met, right? I put up a mural and I don't just paint love. It's
yeah.
lots of things like the who will you be with all the
Mm,
questions, or I am, or dreamer, or be humble, or gratitude, whatever.
yeah.
It makes people think. And
Mm,
40,000, 50,000, a million people go by these walls at any given moment. People all never get to
mm,
touch, but my artwork touches. So within that, I'm getting to touch them, and maybe I can evoke something. They could say, hey, I hate that. It's terrible. Or I'm going to
mm,
be grateful today. Man, I need to be a little more
mm,
humble. Wow. Or let me dream big. Let me keep chasing my dreams, right? I don't know what that
mm.
is. And that I think is important because sometimes it hits people really hard and they'll post something. The I am love one. And I've talked about this before. A woman stood in front of that mural and said, I am love and I am not defined by my rate. And I'm just like,
Yeah. Let's go.
damn, that's powerful. Like my artwork
So
was able
profound.
to allow her to share that. And I'm not responsible for her strength and her courage, but it opened the doors. Like, you know what? I'm going to post this because of that art. Like, that's humbling. That's cool. And
Right.
at the end of the day, I kept doing this and doing this and doing this. And I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
art is so subjective. Human experience is so subjective. How do I make it simpler? How do I make it more direct? And just by funneling it down, then I landed on love. We operate out of love or we operate out of fear. From fear, we
Mm.
react. From love, we
Yeah.
take a moment and we respond. I mean, we just went through an election
Mm.
cycle that was so tumultuous. Families are breaking up, friends are breaking up. People don't even want to say who they voted for with the fear of whatever could transpire. And it's unfortunate that we
Tell me
cannot
about it.
have these conversations. We cannot say, this is why I voted for Trump without thinking that
Yeah.
other person's like, you're a racist and you're this. We cannot say, this is why we voted Kamala. Sorry, Kamala.
No
Without
worries.
the other
Yeah.
side saying, you
Yeah.
are a woke, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we all
Brainwash,
believe
whatever.
our
Yeah.
things and we have our spot in
Yeah.
life and we have our situations, and our situations allow us to have our thoughts, and our thoughts allow us to have debate and argument. The issues, I think we have so much information in the world right now. We're just regurgitating the news and regurgitating headlines. We're not even really free thinking. We're just like, let's get on this train. Let's go over here.
Yeah. And that's such a huge problem in today's world. And unfortunately, social media has really exacerbated that because the fear gets people clickbaits, it gets people react, and then obviously media makes money off of that. And then I want to take back a little bit what you said earlier part in that previous statement, how you mural, you might not be there, but you mural, your artwork could inspire people, could bring people gratitude. And I mean, you and I, we went through this emotional intelligence workshop that helped a lot, but I'm curious for folks maybe that don't have access to that tool, what are some ways that they could be more like living that childlike wonder, that childlike love? How can they find that inner source of strength versus all the noise that's bombarding them?
I think the beauty is that we've seen, like I did that workshop 2013, 2014. Emotion intelligence wasn't even a word. And there was definitely none of this inspiration all over social media. Like
Yeah.
everything gets weaponized or over commoditized or whatever the case is. But you see people, this is my routine. This is my journaling. This is my meditating. Just find your thing. But ultimately, it's going to come down to, and I speak about this and I've put it in some TED Talks before. It's like, who will you be? Ask yourself the question, who am I? Who do I want to
Mm,
be? How does my life look? How do I want it to look? We're
mm,
the authors of our life. Like,
mm,
start asking that and stop worrying about, am I being liked? Am I being accepted? Am I being this? Hey, we're all, this is a pipe dream, but like, we're all human. We should innately be accepted because you're human. You're Asian, right?
mm,
That doesn't matter to me
100%.
in the sense of like, you are a man, you're human,
Yeah.
that right there is all that matters. And then you're like, oh, cool, you're of Asian descent, but you're still human. Oh,
Yeah.
cool, you're like whatever. And then we add all these
Hmm.
labels.
Right.
Like, let's ask those questions, like, who am I? What am I? And let me go from there. And I think if we all just realize first, like, yo, I'm a human, and
Yeah.
I hurt and I bleed and I feel pain.
Yeah.
And look around you and like, wow, all these humans hurt, bleed, and feel pain. Let's just start there.
Hmm.
Okay, so they're going through their stuff. I'm going through my stuff. But like, what do I
Hmm.
want that to look like? And just
Hmm.
asking it all the time. There's 3 fears. You've heard Lewis talk about this, and I align with
Yeah.
the same fear that he has. It's not really worried about failing. I failed and failed and failed and failed, but you can't really fail if you learn from it. It's just another
That's right.
stepping stone to a lesson to education, right? So is
Mm.
it really a failure if you didn't learn? No, it's a step forward.
No,
Succeeding. I'm not
absolutely.
afraid of succeeding. I've succeeded and I would like to continue succeeding and get to a whole nother level. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and those are my goals, right? But then
Hmm.
there's the fear of what do I look like? How am I perceived? How am I taken in? And I think a lot of us subscribe to that, using the
Huge.
election cycle as a perfect example of those who said they voted one way versus those who said over another way. Like, how am I going to be accepted for what I say and what my values are? Whether you say you believe in God or don't believe in God, whether you X, Y, and Z. And I think we're too worried about being liked because we don't like ourselves. We're too worried about being accepted because we don't accept ourselves. We're too worried about
Yeah.
belonging because we don't belong to ourselves. And then we're trying to find worth in everything, but we're already born worthy. You were given life. If that isn't enough to
100%, man.
feel worthy, I mean, come on.
I know. It's like God created you as his masterpiece. It's kind of, how I, by my beliefs are as a Christian, and kind of along the lines to what you said right there in terms of just having that people don't like themselves. I always feel like we are our own harshest critic. We tend to look at ourselves in the mirror, or emotionally, just we look at our imperfections. In reality, people don't care that much about that. They kind of look at the overall grand scheme of things. But on the flip note of it, especially you've gotten quite a bit of notoriety in what you've done in the message of love. I'm sure you faced haters, or the ones that people that actually probably don't like you to some extent, or maybe as positive as a message as you're spreading. I'm wondering, how did you deal with it when the ones that maybe that are just nefarious, or just like, oh man, what's this guy doing?
Great question. I mean, I could give examples, but in the one sense is like,
Uh,
because I care so
uh,
deeply and I'm empathetic, like it does
Yeah.
bother me. Hold on,
Mm.
my dog is shaking the table.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay. It does bother me in the sense of like, back to how am I taking being perceived or misperceived, right? I've gotten all kinds of
Mm.
weird emails and stuff that I'm totally not, right? I am just not what they think
Sure.
that I am.
Yeah.
In one case, like, you paint love all over the world. What do you think? That's going to change the world? Yes, actually I do. That's why I do that. I am very much in belief that this
So
power is
go.
something that we can go
Yeah.
with. But it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I am, you know, aligned with certain things, or that it's like hippy dippy, or that it's this or that it's that. It's like deep, deep work. It's all about you, you know? Part of it is these internal
Mm.
conversations. I'm constantly reminding myself that I need to love myself, that I get to love myself, that I am enough. Most people
Hmm.
don't realize, you automatically assume that, oh, this is about Valentine's Day or romance, or this is about pride or this. I'm like, no, it's not about any of that, but it's about all of that, because those are
Hmm.
pieces of the pie. It's not just the little tunnel that it goes down. It's all part of the grand picture. And I believe once we start leaning into that, we can be more accepting. And I'm not saying we need to agree with each other. We don't. No one needs to agree with
Hmm.
anyone, and everyone can have their own opinion. But we do get to accept each other. And it goes back to being
Mm.
human. So
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. And if you look at it, I keep writing it and I keep painting it and I keep putting it out there. We've got clothes and we've got hats. And it's just to remind people that you are the answer. Love is the answer, but if you are love, then you are the answer.
Mm.
Be the love you seek. Like, stop looking for it out there. It's here.
Hmm.
It's here. And then
Hmm.
go build it and bring it in and bring it to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And I'm wondering in your case, when you talk about having a authentic version of yourself, but also be accepting of others, being that voice of love, becoming that kind of identity. I'm wondering if it's you like to share entirely optional. Who was the toughest person that you had to love, maybe love unconditionally? Was there anyone that was just like really tough for you to love in maybe your family or friend or
I mean, that question to me is really straight up your parents, right? We are born
mm,
into our family. We are
hmm
born with the parents that we have. You know, you can say that our soul chose them and God chose to pair us with them. And there's a reason for that. I'm not saying any of that is wrong, but it
yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not hard or it's not challenging. And I don't believe that it has to be completely unconditional in the sense of you
hmm
birthed me, I have to love you. I have children now, so I could also, before I would say these things without children. Now I have children. As a parent,
hmm
I have unconditional love for my child. That is the ultimate. Once you go there, that's a different thing. That is
Yeah.
something that came from you. You created, and you've got to shepherd this little being to
hmm
be their best self in this world for when you are no longer here. They've got to be on their. I don't think it
Wow.
has to be the other way around. They don't have to love me forever unconditionally or anything. Will I want that? Yes, of course.
hmm
That's not the purpose, you know?
mm
The purpose is to build good humans, raise good humans. And hopefully, yeah, they still love you and they're your best friends and all that. But I think it comes to family, especially I'm Latino. I know you can relate with your culture. It's like
Sure.
I'm first generation immigrant, so throw that in, just start throwing in all the layers. And these are just more things of like, you have to be an doctor because I'm working hard for you to be here in America, right? You have to this
God,
because
tell me
I gave
about it.
you
The
birth and now the
expectations. Yeah.
guilt and the shame. Like, dude, that
Yeah.
has to all be thrown out the window. And I think once you get rid of that, there'll be more healthy relationships. And then there is the family you build, right? The family you
Mm.
build around you, the friends you bring in, the partner you bring in, the partner you build a family with. There's a big difference in the family you build and the family you're born into.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then we get to really choose the people that can really light us up and the family that we get to build. And you mentioned that you have a big dream, Ruben, that you want to continue. You know, you're such an inspiration building the message of love. What will the world look like if everybody's embracing that message? Yeah. Have you ever thought about that? Or like, I'm just curious, like, what would like the ultimate version of you accomplish your message to the world? What would that world look like?
You know, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I'll start answering it in one way. And then I actually wrote a little caption about this the other day. But
Let's hear it, man. Yeah.
saying that I'm on a world peace mission kind of comes from, I would say, an ego place. Like, yeah, let's go. I'm going to create
Mhm.
world peace. One guy out of the freaking billions that live here. No. But
Yeah.
I am on a world peace mission in the
Uh,
sense, like, if I could change
mhm,
one person, one person, one person, one person, we have this ripple effect
mhm,
that
mhm,
starts
mhm.
spreading and starts expanding and starts going from that way. So I think if we all think of our goals, missions, lives, and aspirations higher to then feed that overall grandiose vision, I think that aligns. Because if we're just trying to hit the grand slam, I mean, we can go down swinging and never get there. But get at bat,
Mm.
get at bat, get at bat. That Dodger World Series, look at that
Yeah.
7 run come
Consistency.
like that
hmm
total meltdown from the Yankees. Like that's how we do it.
Yeah.
So that's one thought. But like I want
Mm,
to find this caption because I'll read it.
mhm.
But well, again, my internet's messing up. So let's see if I can. Let's see if I wrote it somewhere here. So basically, what I want this world to look like, and at the end of the day, we could take our part and we can try to execute our vision on it, you know, and you
Mhm.
don't have to be the president, the next president. You don't have to be Elon Musk. I think as a person, you can strive toward it. All the people around you can strive for it. Maybe there's this ripple effect that's bigger. But like, I want my kids to grow up in a world where we see each other's hearts first, you know, and that's it.
Let's go.
And continued, like whether your vote won or lost, look around. We're all neighbors. We're all humans. We're blaming others while we're doing the same thing. That only pulls us further apart. And
And
as
that
a
is true.
father and a husband in a mixed race, I can't even talk today. In a mixed race marriage, I know the power of love to bridge divides. And it's what brings my family together, and it's what makes the future brighter. And choosing
Yeah.
love isn't easy, especially in times like these. And I struggle with it all the time, which is why I make it a daily practice. But if we can pause, take a breath, and choose kindness, we can create the change beyond any single outcome. So I say it again that I want my kids to grow up in a world where people lead with their hearts. Let's keep moving forward with love today, tomorrow, and every day. We're in this together. Keep loving forward.
Yeah.
So I wrote that with a selfie of me and my daughter, because after the election, there was just a lot of anger and finger pointing, and the emotions ran high. And I'm not saying any of that. This isn't without judgment. I just saw that. I'm like, look, what if we can just all align back to this one moment and just see it for what it is and move forward? So
Yeah.
if we can see each other's heart first, I think we can go from there.
Yeah. Just see each other as human beings. And we're all pretty much DNA wise over 99% alike, somewhere along that statistics. And it's just so unfortunate that we put a label on people. We see the vanity, we see the label on people, and we see maybe their actions, and we assume a decisive outcome. And I always thought that everyone has pain that no one knows about. Everyone's got trauma no one knows about. And if we're able to kind of understand that, if you're able to kind of hear people's story, you almost can't help but to love them, at least to some extent, because they would probably have some pain that you didn't have. You mentioned that part where just consistent self-love. And I think self-love is so important that you talk about that kind of being the cornerstone of your messages. Hey, rather than talking about like Valentine's Day, Pride, whatever the case might be, it's really that cornerstone, having that self-love. I found myself, and I know I'm not alone in this, I found myself like, oh, when times are not doing too good, maybe I got rejected, romantically or something like that. I really kind of hone in on my self-love portion. But when things are kind of going good, when things are cruising, I kind of neglect some of that. Have you ever felt that way in your own journey of self-love? Was it hard to have consistency in that?
All the time. That's why I do this every single day. The thing is, with
Mm,
practice over time, over years, it happens less and less, right?
mm,
I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. Becoming a
mm,
father is something that can easily consume your life. But I think one of the
mm.
most selfish things you can do is let yourself go and put your kids totally at the top. Because then at some point, you're not your best self for them. And being love
Yeah.
is being selfish. And being selfish is putting
Mm,
your best you forward. And being selfish means whatever version of you for self-love, whether you go to the gym, you go to therapy, you go to the spa,
mhm,
whatever it is, you have your hobby, you have your this, you still need to be you. Stop losing your
mm.
identity and your kids and your relationship and your job and whatever the case is. And it's funny because people are like, this self-love thing, it's you and you kids, you youngins, like, oh, you millennials, you this. We didn't have to deal with
Mm.
that. I'm like, the world is so much faster. We have so much more information. But I think when we had way less back in the day, maybe it wasn't an issue because we just lived in tribes and we hunted and we got by and we sat around a fire and we were happy. We didn't have all the distractions under the sun. So I don't
That's
think
right.
that some of this stuff are new problems. I think
Mm.
they just maybe didn't exist as strongly
Yeah.
because the world is so fast, is so full of distractions. Like you can be on social media for hours, like, oh, I'm just learning now. Oh, now I'm at my muse. Now I'm checking out workout videos. Oh,
Totally.
now I'm looking at art. Like you can just bounce around all over the place, and it's distraction after distraction. And look, I'm just as addicted to it as anybody else. So I think it comes down to just realizing that it is important to have me time for whatever that means. And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
hours, and it doesn't mean you need a 12-hour morning routine and all this stuff that people put out there. Find your thing and just center on
Mhm.
yourself. And whether it's 5 minutes or an hour or whatever the case is.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I think to your point earlier in our days, well, maybe even 10, 15 years ago, when people don't have this addiction to social media, when they don't have this information overload, they tend to have a stronger self-identity. Whatever that person's passions are, hey, I'm going to go after that. Or maybe they have a role within this community, a role within a tribe. And nowadays, it's people are getting pulled so many different ways. They should do this, they should do that, and they almost kind of wonder what's their identity, what's their their ultimate outcome. And in a sense, that love is such like a prerequisite. My message to you all is all about, hey, live a life of wonder. But I think it's really impossibly hard. I don't know if it's even doable if you're not able to love someone first to create magic moment with them. You kind of have to love them, appreciate them as a human being. So I'm curious if you have any like story of wonder or just like magical moments that in your journey, where there's a message of love or where there's overcoming something you like to share with my audience.
I think if we slow down and just take a moment, you'll realize how much wonder is around you. We miss it. We miss so much.
Yeah.
It's just everywhere. And it's also how you're defining it in that moment, And maybe we just sit and wonder. I wonder what the world would be like. That's a whole different thing. And maybe we're misconstruing it. To me, it's wonder like, once I had a child, it reignited my curiosity because I see my kid like trash on the floor and he's just like, or now my little girl, she's just like, the sounds, the ruffles, puts in her mouth, like, you see the wonder over her eyes. Like, oh my God, this is new. So I think it's the fact that we take our lives too for granted. And there is wonder all around us. And let's stop wondering or wandering in our thoughts. But like, it's everywhere. Wonder and wonderful moments.
I love that, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, Ruben, really appreciate your time and you taking you're an inspiration to me and so many others, not just with your mural, but the way that you live, the way you inspire others, even with this conversation, sharing your insight, offering your time. So I just want to, deeply acknowledge you and then in gratitude, thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to do it. And sorry for the internet snafu.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Yeah, thank you. And then we obviously have all the gear, all the new gear coming out, right? So, you can wear it.
How should people find you, or how should we redirect them to you? Like anything that we can help you, support you in your vision.
My Instagram is at Ruben Rojas or RubenRojas.com. Support. I mean, get a T-shirt, wear it. The interactions you get. I tell these stories that I hear are my favorite. Like when people wear the gear in airports, it's either people that know me, like, oh my God, Ruben, or that's a Ruben, or and like every time that happens, I think is the coolest thing when someone shares a story with me. But the fact that like you're walking around with love, and they're like, or you travel and enter a country with that, or you're going through customs with that, or you're going through airport security with that, like they already know, like, oh, I think it makes the airport a little easier, but it's really cool to hear the stories of people interacting with other people wearing the clothing in the airplane, not knowing each other. And the only connecting thread is me at some point, somewhere in there.
Oh my gosh.
Over the mission.
That's amazing.
Live through love.
Yeah. And for folks that want to check out your latest collection, like you mentioned, just a hat and stuff like that, do they go to your website, or what's the easiest way for them to look through? Ruben Rojas.
Instagram is where I tease it mostly, but you can only buy it from the website directly.
Gotcha. Awesome. And you also have a podcast as well.
Yeah, it's been on hiatus since I had my daughter born, but there's 102 episodes out there with really cool people. Evergreen content. That's great to listen to. Go back and catch up. It's called Live Through Love.
Yeah. Love it. And what I'll do is I'll put all the links in description so you're all able to connect with Ruben, check out his merchandise and his mission, his passion, and his podcast as well. So thank you so much, Ruben. Really appreciate our time this afternoon.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah.